Welcome to another S&P 500 analysis. This is the midweek edition. Today is March 31st, 2021. Today, the E-mini S&P 500 future Globex all-time high came to once again. We've been waiting for the E-mini S&P 500 future to tag its Globex all-time high during the regular trading hour session to make it official. And it did just that today. And the implication for this was that when it pushes up and tag that Globex all-time high, it also pushes the S&P 500 cash index to a new all-time high. So this was a clue to tell us to look for a new all-time high for the S&P 500. Now, today the S&P 500 did just that, but it did not close with a new closing high. So should we be concerned? In this video, we're going to discuss that a little bit more, so stay tuned. In this video, I'm going to start off with the ES instead of looking at the other stuff that we typically do. And we will look at those internal sentiment and also the S&P 500 cash index later on in this video. But let's take a look at the ES. Here's the ES. The Globex high was printed on March 18 of this year. Right? And the high was 3978.50. And today, the high was 3983.75. So we're going to take a look at the market profile, and we could also see something interesting there. Here's the E-mini S&P 500 market profile. Remember last night I put out a tweet and tweeting out this this chart here. Today's session is here, and I was saying watch for this poor high here, and then also the Globex all-time high. And then I said, okay, below, okay, the below, we basically have to keep an eye on this poor low to come down and maybe tag this poor low. Then I also say the single print. Then in between, also pay attention to these point of control. So what happened today is that it took out this point of control, came up and resolved this poor high, then also proceeded up and took out this all-time Globex all-time high today. Now, what it did also is that it put in a poor high today. So we're going to need to see this poor high get resolved. So in other words, this seems to indicate that we might, okay, not a certainty now. Nothing is certain in this market, right? But right now, looking at this thing is that we might see another all-time high from the E-mini S&P 500, the ES. And that also implies that we might also see it on the cash index, the S&P 500, the SPX. Okay, so that's basically what this, what this is sort of telling us, this poor high here. Right? So we're going to be keeping an eye on this poor high. And I will post this chart later on this evening on my Twitter stream as soon as I update some of these levels. Okay? So let's go and take a look at the other stuff that we normally take a look at, and let's go and take a look at the sentiment and the internal before we take a look at the cash indexes. Okay, on this intraday chart here, we're going to look at the internals and the S&P 500, and also the bottom here is the internal for the NASDAQ and the NASDAQ 100 here on the far right-hand corner. Let's first look at the up-down volume ratio for the New York Stock Exchange. You see that it is not that strong on the up-down volume ratio today. And in matter of fact, it closed with more down volume than up volume. And it closed with a minus 1.06 down volume over up volume. Okay, so we got 1.06 times more down volume than up volume. And also you look at the advanced decline. The advanced decline started out up here somewhere, right, over 1200, close to 1200. Then you see it faded down to somewhere just slightly above 200. And it kind of, chopped around and it came all the way back up to over 1,000. And you see during the, toward the close, it came down. And this got something to do with the OPEX. After all, today is OPEX Wednesday. Right, so there could be some pinning problem or pinning game that they are playing. And also today is the last trading day of the month and also of the Q1 first quarter. So there could be a lot of last minute, window dressing and that sort of thing that took place. But notice that the cumulative tick is positive and also is increasing throughout the day. Although you see at near the close, we did see some quite a few minus 500, and it didn't get down to minus 1,000, but got close the last couple ticks here. Right, it got not almost to 1,000, and you see that the S&P 500 it just kind of sold off in the last 10-15 minutes or so. Okay, so and now in looking at the Nasdaq, oh by the way, the S&P 500 closed with a gain of 14 points or 0.38%, and the Nasdaq 100 actually gained almost 200 points. It gained 195 points or 1.51%. And the up-down volume ratio is positive 1.89. So there's 1.89 times more up volume than down volume than Nasdaq market. And also the advanced decline, there were 1,171 more advancing issue than declining issue. And it's, holding up a little bit better than the New York Stock Exchange. New York Stock Exchange closed with only 450 more advancing issue than declining issue on, for today on Wednesday. And you see that, Nasdaq came open with a gap here somewhere around this 1,000 issues, 1,000 more advancing issue than declining issue, and came up to close to 1,800 level, and then came back down, and went and chop around and come back up to 1,600 level before settle down with 1,171 more advancing issue than declining issue, and also the cumulative tick. It is ascending or rising throughout the session. Although we did see a little bit of a negative tick down here throughout into the close. Getting to this minus 300. Again, it did not cross the 1,000 level. All right. So although we see some negative tick here, basically been between minus 500 and 800. Okay, and the Nasdaq 100. Hold up a little bit better than the S&P 500 today, and here, did came down a little bit. And a lot of the stuff is basically the FANG stock got a nice performance today. Got a little good dead cat bounce. Basically, I'm just calling it dead cat bounce because when we look at the index here, there's still some work and there's still some level that has to prove in order for it to tell us that it has changed the trend. Because right now the trend sort of remain down at the lower level instead of a higher level, but anything is possible. So let's go and take a look at the index. Okay, here's the daily S&P 500 cash index. As you can see, it put in a new all-time high here, but it closed below the all-time closing high, which is last Friday at 3974.54. And today it closed at 3973.33. So slightly less, although it put in a new all-time high. Remember now, we said that there is a poor high on the E-mini S&P 500, right, from the market profile chart. So if it come up and we solve that poor high, that's basically the high of the day, and it's the high, all-time high for the E-mini S&P 500. Then if that come up and resolve that, then the chances are you're going to push this S&P 500 cash index to put in a new high as well. Even though, let's say it come up and clear that during the Globex hour, during the Asian session or the Europe session, it still is basically put in a Globex all-time high. Then again, that's another, indication, basically that's what we've been watching for clues to see is the S&P 500 going to make another new high or not. And if it does that during the overnight session, then it kind of gives us another clue to say, look for another new high. But even if it doesn't, right, just purely by that poor high, and the odds are that it's going to come up and try to get that resolved. And when it does, then that's where we're going to see a new high. Now, the other thing is that we don't know how much of a drawdown or pullback, the index and also the E-mini, the ES, will come down before it come back up and resolve that poor high. So that's one thing that we don't know yet, right? But we can look at that based on some of the price action or what some of the level for potential support, and that could give us some clue, right? So we've basically been watching for the S&P 500 to come up with to this 4,000 level, right? And today's high is basically is 3994.41, so it's just slightly less than 6 point away from that 4,000 level, and we could see that tomorrow if it come up and decide to push through and put in another new all-time high. But again, on the downside, we're basically looking for this thing to possibly, this trend line here. And before it was, the 3,900 level. Right now, it seems like it might be the 3,950. But if we break this trend line, then again, these levels will come back in play, which is 3870, 3784, 3720. So those are the pullback level that we're going to keep an eye on if it decides to pull back and consolidate a little bit before we get another push. So, but if we do see that the E-mini S&P 500 push to a new high, then we essentially are looking for this thing to see could it get back, get up to this upward channel trend line, which will be somewhere around that 4,050, right? That's been the level that we also been watching for the potential upside. Now, here's the NASDAQ 100, the daily chart of the NASDAQ 100. Right, although we saw a bounce back up above this 12,786.92. Remember, we say it has to come back up, and we claim get above this 13,280 and possibly come up and fill this gap. Then once this gap is filled, then yeah, maybe, maybe this will be back in play, the all-time high. But until then, we're basically still looking at this thing to maybe trend down and retest this 12,439, basically a 12,440 area and the 12,204. So those are possible, support area that might see it to come back down and retest if it could not hold this 12,786 area here. Okay, so again, the potential resistance is 13,280. Have to get above that. If it cannot move above that, then we're still looking for these lower level to get retested on the NASDAQ 100. And that's your QQQ, by the way. And here's the Russell 2000. Although the Russell 2000 the last couple of days got a nice strong move up, still we're basically waiting for it to see could it come back up and reclaim this upper channel trend line. Right now, we're basically looking at somewhere around this 2250. If we get above that 2250 and get to the 2300, then possibly this 2360.2, the all-time high, the all-time closing high, could be back in play. But otherwise, if it unable to hold about this 2194.90 or 2195, then we're essentially looking for this thing to come back down to the 2075 or even possibly work itself back down to this 1935.30 or near this lower channel trend line. And looking at the Dow Jones Transportation, here's the interesting part, right? Yesterday we saw a new closing high and also a new high from the Dow Jones Transportation. And remember the previous day on Monday, right? On Monday we saw the Dow Jones Industrial close with a new closing high, but the transportation failed to confirm it. So we basically have an unconfirmed Dow theory closing high on the Dow Jones Industrial. Then we say, well, the Dow Jones Transportation could come back up, and if it makes a new high, then it will confirm that, and which it did yesterday. So the Dow Jones Industrial did not close with a new all-time closing high yesterday or today. So based on the Dow theory, the way that I interpret it, maybe not the way that everybody interpret it, is that I still expect to see, the possibility of the Dow Jones Industrial to make another new closing high. Okay, so with the transportation, it did not close with a new closing high or made a new intraday high. and could be chopping around and move its way up to the 15,000 level. But if it decides to pull back, remember the level that we will keep an eye on, the first level somewhere around 14,242. And if that doesn't hold, then we're basically looking at this 13,656. Now the ultimate level would be likely be down at this lower channel trend line. At this point, it's too early for us to talk about that, to even try to project some sort of level. So right now, we're basically still watching for potential support somewhere around that 14,242. And the upper level is toward the target of 15,000. And here's the Dow Jones Industrial, the Dow Jones 30. You see on Monday, it closed with a new closing high and also printed a new all-time high. Right, here's the all-time high for that day is 33,259. And here is the old prior high, 33,227.78. And you can see that after the Monday's high, it came back down. And right now it's, testing the prior high, the pivot here at this 33,012.61. So if this thing decides to pull back, the first thing we want to watch to see is, will it break down from this upper trend line here on this intermediate channel? Would it come down here and then work itself down toward the lower channel trend line? And that would be somewhere around 32,000 level there, right? Although I got a price level here on this pivot high at 32,009.64. So that is one of the levels to keep an eye on. Right now, it seems to be, moving below this pivot high here, this previous closing high. So that's basically all the indexes. And as you can see, today there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's all ended mixed, right? So what do we have? Let's recap. We have the E-mini S&P 500 ES took out the prior Globex all-time high, and it took the S&P 500 cash index up along with it, and the S&P 500 cash index, the SPX, put in a new all-time high, but unable to close at a new closing high. And then the Dow Jones Transportation failed to follow through with a new all-time closing high today after a closing high yesterday and all-time high yesterday. So that still leaves the Dow Jones Industrial, the prior, the last all-time closing high, a confirmed high, and that means we need to see a non-confirmed high from the Dow Jones Industrial, or the next high could be confirmed also. So we'll see, but what it means is that we still expect to see the Dow Jones Industrial to come up and make another new closing high. So with that said, the NASDAQ 100 got a little dead cat bounce, but it still needs to get above that 13,000, and it's still got a little distance away. So we'll see what it be able to get back up there. And if it's not, then we're going to keep an eye on it for it to come back down and test the recent low. So again, we're seeing a lot of these FANG stock. It's just getting these little oversold type of pounds here and there, and a lot of the market makers basically using those FANG stock to push the index up and down during the OPEX, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now, this Friday is a holiday, so tomorrow is the last trading day of the week, and also the first trading day of the new month of April. People say, yeah, April is a strong month typically. And like I said, a lot of these stats is very misleading. You have to look inside the month. What is, anywhere between the beginning of the month or end of March to end of April. We could measure that to say, yeah, April ended up above the end of the month of close, end of March. So it had a strong month. But in between that, we might drop a few hundred points, S&P 500, S&P 4 point, and then recover and then close up 50 points for the month. Then we say, oh, we have a strong month. So again, context is what matters, right? So a lot of people look at these stats and say, oh, April typically is a strong month, but also April is typically a month that put in new low. So go and study the market. Don't just look at these talking head, point that they try to condense and carry the narrative to make their point based on what they are biased on. Okay? So be careful. Always do your homework and do your own due diligence and find out exactly, exactly what transpired on the price action. Don't just take 2 points and say, oh, it is good month or it is bad month, a good week, a bad week, or sell in May and go away and that sort of thing. Right? May is one of the months that typically also put in new market high. So again, it's context, right? Context, because anything can happen in between, inside the month, from month beginning to month end. So with that said, don't forget to smash that thumb up and give it a like and help me promote and share this video. Thank you for watching and stay safe.